For 8 years, I lived next door to a woman with a young son. My son always warned me, "Dad, stay away from her. She's dangerous." So he built a 10-foot fence to separate the two houses. I believed him, but I still secretly cared for her and the boy through a hole in the fence. Until the day she died, no one came to her funeral. A lawyer handed me an envelope. When I opened it, I was so shocked I could barely stand. And in that moment, I realized the most dangerous person in this story was the one I trusted the most. Thank you for being here with me. It truly means a lot. Before we continue, take a moment to comment where you're watching from. Sometimes stories like this aren't about what is real or not, but about the choices we make and the truths we ignore. And maybe there's something in it worth reflecting on for ourselves today. The funeral was on a Tuesday. I stood alone at the grave, rain soaking through my coat. The cemetery stretched out in every direction, gray stones, brown grass, bare trees, against a darker sky. The casket was already lowering into the earth. No flowers, no reception, no one else, just me. I didn't know Emma Carter well. For 8 years, she'd lived next to my son's house, but we'd never spoken more than a few words. I'd seen her sometimes in the yard hanging laundry or sitting on the porch with a book. A quiet woman, kept to herself. 2 weeks ago, my son David had pulled me aside after Sunday dinner. "Dad," he'd said, his voice tight. "Stay away from that woman next door." "Emma, why? She's dangerous. She's been spreading lies about Sarah and me. Just trust me, okay?" I'd nodded. David was my son. I trusted him. But 3 days ago, I'd seen the obituary. Emma Carter, 35, passed away unexpectedly. Survived by her son Liam, age 8. Unexpectedly, she was 35. Too young. So I came to the funeral, and no one else did. The rain picked up. I turned to leave, but a woman in a dark coat stepped into my path. "Mr. Harrison," I stopped. She was mid-40s, sharp-eyed professional. "Yes, my name is Jennifer Wells. I'm an attorney." She pulled out a large envelope, slightly damp. "Emma Carter left this for you. She asked me to deliver it personally after her passing." My name was written across the front. Thomas Harrison. "Why me? She looked at me with something like pity. "She said you'd understand once you read it." Before I could ask anything else, she turned and walked away, disappearing between the graves. I stood there holding the envelope. The rain drummed against the paper. I didn't open it in the car. I didn't open it on the drive home. I waited until I was alone in my kitchen. The door locked the lights off. I sat at the table and tried to steady my hands. Finally, I tore it open. Inside were 3 things: a letter, a stack of documents, and a sealed envelope marked DNA test results. I unfolded the letter first. 6 pages handwritten. "Dear Thomas, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry you have to learn the truth like this. But there's no one else I can trust. 10 years ago, I met your son. David was 28. I was 25. We worked together at a marketing firm in Hartford. He was charming, funny, kind. We fell in love. When I told him I was pregnant, everything changed. He stopped returning my calls. 2 weeks later, I saw him in town with another woman, Sarah. 3 months later, they were married. I didn't understand. Then one night, David came to my apartment. He was drunk. He looked terrible. And he told me something I'll never forget. He said, "I can't be a father, not after what I did." He told me that a month before I told him I was pregnant, he'd been out drinking. He'd driven home drunk. And on a dark road near Elm Street, he hit someone. A man. Walking home from work. David said the man flew over the hood, hit the pavement, didn't move, and David drove away. He was too scared to stop. Too scared to call for help. He took his car to a private garage the next morning, paid cash to have the damage fixed, and never spoke of it again. Thomas, your son, took a man's life, and he ran. I stopped reading. My chest felt tight. I couldn't breathe. David, my son. I forced myself to keep reading. I didn't know what to do. I was 25, pregnant, and alone. David stopped coming around. Sarah moved in with him, and I had Liam. For 8 years, I raised him by myself. I worked 2 jobs. But I couldn't stop thinking about that man, the one David hit. So 2 years ago, I bought the house next to David's. I wanted Liam to know his father, even if David refused to acknowledge him. But it didn't go the way I thought. David and Sarah built a fence, 10 feet high. They filed legal disputes against me. Noise complaints, property lines, anything to make my life harder. Sarah threatened me. More than once. She said if I didn't leave, I'd regret it. And I found out something else. Sarah isn't pregnant. She never was. It's all fake. Thomas, I'm scared. I think they're going to hurt me. I think they're going to make it look like an accident. If something happens to me, please protect my son. His name is Liam. He's 8 years old. He's smart and kind, and he loves to draw. And he's your grandson. There's a DNA test in this envelope. Liam is David's son, which means he's your family. Don't let them win. Don't let David bury the truth again. Please, protect him. Emma, I set the letter down. My hands were shaking. I reached for the sealed envelope, ripped it open. The results were printed on thick paper, stamped with a medical lab logo. Paternal grandfather Thomas Harrison. Child Liam Carter. Probability of relationship 99.97%. I stared at the numbers. Liam, my grandson. I'd never known he existed. For 8 years, David had let this boy live next door and never said a word. I looked at the stack of documents Emma had left. Photographs, receipts, printed articles. There was a photo of a street at night. Police tape. A body covered with a tarp. Hartford Courant, August 16, 2015. Hit and run claims life of local man. There was a receipt from a body shop dated 2 days later. Cash payment. No name. There were printed emails, threats, legal filings, and there was a small notebook, Emma's handwriting. Pages of dates, times, incidents. March 10th, 2024. Sarah told me, if you don't leave, you'll regret it. 10 days ago. 3 days before Emma died, I sat in the dark for a long time. The rain had stopped. The house was silent. I thought about my son. David had been a good kid. Bright. Hard-working. He'd gone to college, gotten a good job, married a woman I thought was decent. I'd been proud of him. But sitting there in the dark, holding that letter, I realized something. I didn't know him. I didn't know the man who could take someone's life and walk away. I didn't know the man who could abandon his own child. I didn't know the man who could let a woman, his child's mother, live in fear for 8 years while he built a fence and pretended she didn't exist. I'd spent 68 years believing I knew my son. That night I realized I'd never known him at all. I stood and walked to the window. The house next door was dark. No lights. No car in the driveway. Just emptiness. It hadn't always been that way. 8 years ago, on a warm September afternoon, I'd been sitting in this same spot when I saw the moving truck pull up. A young woman climbed out, mid-20s, dark hair in a ponytail, exhaustion in every line of her face. Behind her, a toddler wobbled on unsteady legs. I didn't think much of it. New neighbors. But the next morning, I woke to the sound of construction. David and Sarah were building a fence. Not a small one. A 10-foot barrier of solid wood planks running the entire length of the property line. By the end of the day, the neighbor's house had vanished behind it. I walked over that evening. "What's all this?" I asked David. He didn't look at me, just kept hammering. "Security." "Security from what?" "From her." He jerked his head toward the fence. "That woman moved here on purpose. She's been stalking us." I frowned. "Stalking you? She's dangerous. Sarah's scared. Just stay away from her, okay?" I looked at the fence. 10 feet of wood. Like a wall. "All right," I said. I trusted him. He was my son. A few months later, I was walking my yard when I noticed a gap at the base of the fence. The wood had rotted, leaving a hole about the size of a dinner plate. I bent down, peered through. On the other side, a little boy sat alone in the grass. He couldn't have been more than a year old. Dark hair, big eyes. He held a stick, dragging it through the dirt. Then he looked up, saw me, and started to cry. I reached through the hole, waving gently. Hey, it's okay." The boy stopped crying, stared at me. I reached into my jacket pocket. I'd been carving that morning, a little wooden bird. Nothing fancy. I held it out through the hole. The boy blinked, crawled closer, took the bird, and smiled. "Liam," a woman's voice, sharp, scared. Emma appeared. She scooped the boy up, her eyes darting to the fence. "I'm sorry," I said quickly. "He was crying. I just wanted to help." She looked at the hole, at me, at the wooden bird in Liam's hands. Who are you?" "Thomas. I live next door." Her face changed. Something flickered in her eyes. "You're David's father." "Yes." She stepped back, holding Liam tighter. "It's all right," I said. "I'm not here to bother you." She looked at me for a long time. Then at Liam, who was turning the bird over and over, fascinated. "You carved that?" "Yes. It's beautiful." She sat down in the grass. Liam squirmed in her lap, clutching the bird. "My name is Emma," she said quietly. "And this is Liam." "Hello, Liam," I said. The boy smiled again. After that I came back. Not every day. Just once or twice a week. I'd kneel by the hole and Liam would be there waiting. I brought him things. A carved rabbit, a turtle, a horse. He loved them. Emma would sit nearby watching. She never said much, but she didn't stop me. As the months went by, I started reading to him. Children's books I'd kept from when David was small. Liam would press his face close to the hole, listening. When he got older, 3, then 4, I taught him how to hold a piece of wood, how to make the first cut, how to see the shape hiding inside. By the time he was 5, he'd carved his first animal, a duck. Lopsided and rough, but his. He was so proud. Emma started bringing me coffee. She'd sit on her side of the fence, I'd sit on mine, and we'd talk while Liam played. She told me about her life. She worked 2 jobs, waitressing in the morning, housekeeping in the evening. Always tired, always stretched thin. "It's just the 2 of us," she said once. "His father's not in the picture." I didn't ask. It wasn't my place. But I saw the strain, the dark circles, the trembling hands. And I saw how David and Sarah treated her. Legal disputes, constant complaints, letters from lawyers. Over 8 years, Emma spent over $8,000 defending herself. Property lines, noise complaints, harassment accusations that went nowhere. One day, I saw Sarah scream at her in the grocery store parking lot. Emma just stood there holding Liam's hand, her face blank. I wanted to say something, but David had told me to stay away, and I'd listened. 6 months before Emma died, she said something that stuck with me. We were sitting by the fence. Liam was inside napping. "Thomas," she said quietly. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." She hesitated. "If something happens to me, will you look after Liam?" I frowned. "What do you mean?" "They're hiding something terrible. Your son and his wife. I can feel it. And I'm scared that one day—" She stopped. "They're going to what?" She shook her head. "Never mind. Forget I said anything." But I didn't forget. I should have pressed her. Should have asked what she meant. But I didn't. 2 weeks ago, I saw the obituary. Emma Carter, 35, died unexpectedly in a car accident. Survived by her son Liam, age 8. Unexpectedly, I thought about that conversation, about the fear in her voice, and I went to the funeral. Now, standing in my kitchen, I looked at the 22 wooden animals lined up on the table. Emma had kept every one, saved them, left them for me. I picked up the first one, the little bird I'd given Liam when he was a year old, worn smooth from small hands holding it. I thought about the 8 years I'd spent kneeling by that fence, reading stories, teaching a little boy how to carve, watching him grow. I thought about how David had built that fence to keep them out, but all it had done was create a space where something beautiful could grow in secret. And now Emma was gone. Liam was alone. For 8 years I'd watched that boy grow up through a hole in a fence. Now I knew the truth. He was my grandson, and my son had tried to erase him. My hands shook as I picked up the phone. I'd been sitting at the kitchen table since dawn, staring at the 22 wooden animals I'd carved for Liam over 8 years. The DNA test results lay beside them, the numbers sharp and undeniable. 99.97%. I had a grandson, and he was alone. I dialed the number I'd found online, Child Protective Services, Hartford office. The phone rang 3 times before a woman answered. CPS, this is Ms. Anderson. I cleared my throat. My name is Thomas Harrison. I'm calling about a boy, Liam Carter. He's 8 years old. I believe he's in your care. A pause. Are you a relative, Mr. Harrison? Yes. My voice cracked. I'm his grandfather. 2 hours later, I had an appointment. Friday morning. A supervised visit. Ms. Anderson had been kind but cautious. She'd asked questions how I knew Liam, why I hadn't come forward sooner. I'd told her the truth, or part of it. I didn't tell her about the letter, or the hit and run, or the fact that my son had spent 8 years trying to erase his own child. Not yet, but there was something I needed to do first. I called David. He sounded surprised. Is everything okay? I need to see you, I said. Can you come by the house? When? Now. A pause. All right. I'll be there in 20 minutes. He arrived in 15. I opened the door and stepped aside. He walked in, his eyes scanning the room. What's this about? He asked. I didn't sit. I went to a funeral yesterday. His face went still. Who's? Emma Carter's. For a moment, he didn't move. Then he shook his head, let out a bitter laugh. Dad, I told you to stay away from her. She's gone, David. She can't hurt anyone now. Good. He looked at me, his jaw tight. That woman was dangerous. She was obsessed with us. Is that why you built the fence? Yes. And the legal disputes, the harassment. She was the one harassing us. His voice rose. She moved in next door on purpose. She followed Sarah. She spread lies. We had to protect ourselves. I took a step forward. What about Liam? David's face changed. Just for a second. A flicker of something, fear, maybe. Or guilt. Who? Her son, Liam. He's 8 years old. I don't know anything about her kid. He turned toward the door. Look, Dad, I don't know what she told you, but she didn't tell me anything. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the folded paper. This did. I handed him the DNA test. He stared at it. Didn't take it. What is that? Read it. He snatched the paper, unfolded it. His eyes moved across the page, and I watched the color drain from his face. Where did you get this? Emma left it for me, along with a letter. He looked up. A letter. Yes. What did it say? That you're Liam's father. That you abandoned him. That you... I stopped, my throat tight. That you took a man's life in 2015 and ran. David's hands clenched. The paper crumpled in his fist. She lied. Did she? Yes. His voice was louder now. She was crazy, Dad. She made all of it up. Those tests can be faked. It's from a medical lab, court certified. I don't care. He threw the paper on the floor. She was a liar, a stalker, and now she's trying to ruin me from beyond the grave. I bent down, picked up the paper. What happened in 2015, David? He went very still. What are you talking about? The hit and run, Elm Street, August 15th? I don't know what you're talking about. Emma said you told her, that you were drunk, that you hit someone and drove away." She lied. "Did you?" His face twisted. "You're really going to believe her over me, your own son? I'm asking you to tell me the truth." "I am telling you the truth." He stepped closer, his eyes hard. "That woman spread lies about me for 8 years. She tried to destroy my marriage, my career, my life, and now you're going to let her poison you against me. David, if you believe her, then you're a traitor." His voice was cold, flat. "You're choosing a stranger over your own blood." I looked at him, at the son I'd raised, the boy I'd taught to ride a bike, to be honest and kind, and I didn't recognize him. "Get out," I said quietly. He stared at me. "What? Get out of my house." He turned and slammed the door behind him. That night I could barely sleep. I got up around midnight, opened the medicine cabinet. My heart pills. I'd been taking them for 5 years, one every night before bed. I shook one into my palm, swallowed it with water. The next morning I woke early. I had things to do. I needed to prepare for the meeting with Ms. Anderson. I needed to call a lawyer. I showered, dressed, made coffee. And then I got in the car. I was halfway to the CPS office when it started. A tightness in my chest. A strange numbness in my fingers. I blinked. The road blurred. The tightness spread. My chest felt like it was being crushed. I couldn't breathe. I yanked the wheel to the right, pulled onto the shoulder. But my hands were shaking. My vision doubled, and then everything went dark. When I woke, I was in a hospital bed. Bright lights, beeping machines. A woman in scrubs standing over me. "Mr. Harrison, can you hear me?" I tried to speak. "What happened?" "You collapsed. A passerby called 911. You're at Hartford General." "Am I? You're stable now." She pulled up a chair. "I'm Dr. Hayes. When you came in, we ran a full blood panel. Your medication levels were dangerously high. 4 times the normal dose." I frowned. "That's not possible. I only take 1 pill a night." "I believe you," she said. "But the pills you've been taking, they're not the right dosage. Someone replaced your medication. The pills in your bottle are double strength. If you'd kept taking them, you would have had a stroke. Or worse." The room felt very cold. Someone tampered with them. Yes, I thought about the medicine cabinet. About who'd been in my house. David had come by on Monday, 3 days ago. He'd said he needed to use the bathroom. He'd been gone for 5 minutes. No, I couldn't believe it. I didn't want to believe it. But the thought was there, sharp and terrible. I had raised him. I had loved him. And now he might be trying to make me disappear. The machines hummed their steady rhythm, but I couldn't find any peace. I'd been staring at the ceiling tiles for what felt like hours, counting them, losing count, starting over. White squares with gray speckles. My mind kept wandering back to the same thought: someone had opened my pill bottle, switched out my medication, and waited for me to take it. Dr. Hayes had explained it that morning. Her voice careful and steady. "Mr. Harrison," the blood work came back. "Your medication, the one you take for your heart, it wasn't what it should have been. Someone altered the dosage. 4 times the normal strength." She'd paused. "If you'd taken another dose, or if the ambulance had arrived 10 minutes later..." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. A knock on the door pulled me out of the spiral. Mr. Harrison, a man in his early 50s, stepped in, badge clipped to his belt, navy jacket, tired eyes. He looked like someone who'd spent 20 years asking hard questions. "I'm Detective James Miller," he said, offering his hand. "Hartford Police Department. I need to ask you some questions, if you're up for it." I nodded and pushed myself up against the pillows. Miller pulled a chair over and sat, flipping open a small notebook. "Dr. Hayes briefed me on your condition. She said your medication was tampered with. So let's start from the beginning. What happened?" I took a breath and told him everything. I told him about the funeral, the envelope, Emma's 6-page letter explaining how my son had abandoned her 10 years ago when she told him she was pregnant. How David had been behind the wheel in a 2015 accident that ended a man's life, then walked away. How Emma had moved into the house next door 8 years ago, only to be met with a 10-foot fence and years of cruelty. I told him about the DNA test. 99.97%. Liam was my grandson. Miller wrote quickly, his pen scratching across the page. He didn't interrupt. Just let me talk. Hun, she warned me, I said, my voice shaking. 6 months before she passed. She told me they were hiding something terrible. Miller looked up. And 2 weeks later, she was gone. Car accident, I whispered. But it wasn't an accident. Her brakes were cut. He leaned forward. You have proof. I nodded toward the bag on the chair by the window. It's all in there. Miller stood and pulled out the contents one by one. Emma's letter, the DNA report, 47 photographs, lawsuit paperwork, threatening messages, and at the bottom a thick file. What's this? He asked, holding up a notebook. Her diary, I said. I haven't read all of it yet, but there's enough. He flipped it open, scanning a few pages. His jaw tightened. And this, he held up a stapled document. Forensic report, I said quietly. The mechanic who inspected her car found the brake line had been cut. Clean cut. Not wear and tear. Miller set everything down and turned back to me. Mr. Harrison, I'm going to be straight with you. What you're telling me, if it's true, means we're looking at something a lot bigger than tampering with medication. We're talking about a possible investigation going back to 2015. The word hung in the air. Why, I know, I said. He sat back down. Do you believe your son is responsible? I hesitated. Part of me wanted to say no, wanted to defend him, wanted to believe that the boy I'd raised couldn't do something like this. But the other part of me remembered the look in his eyes 2 days ago. The anger, the denial. I don't know, I finally said. But someone tried to harm me, and I can't ignore that. Miller nodded. I'm going to start an investigation, today. I'll get a warrant to search your son's home, pull any security footage from your neighborhood, and contact the family of the man who was hurt back in 2015. Relief washed over me. Thank you, I said. He stood, gathering the evidence into a bag. You'll need to stay somewhere safe for a few days. Do you have family friends? I shook my head. Not really. Then I'll arrange a hotel. We'll keep it quiet. That afternoon, my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number, but I answered anyway. Dad. It was Sarah. Her voice was calm. Too calm. I heard you're in the hospital, she said. David's very upset. He thinks you've been talking to the police. I didn't respond. You're making a mistake, she continued. We're your family. Not some woman who spent 8 years trying to harm our lives. Not some child who isn't even part of this family. He's part of this family. I said, my voice harder than I expected. His name is Liam, and he's my grandson. There was a pause. Then quietly, You don't know what you're doing. She hung up. 3 days later, Dr. Hayes cleared me to leave. Detective Miller was waiting in the lobby. He drove me to a small hotel on the edge of town, nothing fancy, just clean and quiet. He handed me a key card and a business card with his direct number. Stay here for now, he said. Don't go back to your house until I give you the all clear. And if anything feels off, you call me. I nodded. Before he left, he added, Ms. Park from Child Protective Services will call you tomorrow morning. She's arranging a supervised visit with Liam. My heart skipped. Tomorrow, he confirmed. You'll finally get to meet him. That evening, I walked to a small shop 2 blocks from the hotel. I bought a picture book, a set of colored pencils, and a wooden puzzle shaped like a train. Back in the hotel room, I pulled out my carving tools and a small block of pine I'd kept in my jacket pocket. I worked slowly, carefully, shaping the wood into a bird, a robin like the ones that used to nest in the oak tree in my backyard. When I finished, I carved 5 words along the base. For my grandson with love. I set it on the nightstand and lay back on the bed. Tomorrow I would meet him, my grandson, Liam, and I had no idea what I was supposed to say. I'd rehearsed this moment 100 times in my head. But now that it was here, sitting in the narrow waiting room of the Child Protective Services office, I couldn't remember a single word. The walls were painted a pale yellow, probably meant to feel cheerful, but it just looked tired. There were posters about foster care, a plastic bin of toys in the corner, and a clock that ticked too loud. I sat with my hands folded in my lap, the wooden bird I'd carved last night tucked safely in my jacket pocket. The door opened. Mr. Harrison. A woman in her 40s stepped out, clipboard in hand, her smile warm but professional. "I'm Ms. Angela Foster. We spoke on the phone yesterday." I stood, shaking her hand. "Yes. Thank you for arranging this." "Of course," she said. "This is Dr. Grace Bennett, our child psychologist. She'll be sitting in on the visit today just to make sure Liam feels comfortable." Dr. Bennett was younger, maybe late 30s, with kind eyes and a calm voice. She shook my hand gently. "It's nice to meet you, Mr. Harrison. Liam's been through a lot. We're taking this slow." I nodded. "I understand." Ms. Foster glanced toward the hallway. "He's a little nervous, but he knows you're here." My chest tightened. "Can I see him?" She smiled. "Give us just a moment." They disappeared down the hall, and I stood there frozen, staring at the empty doorway. And then he appeared, a small boy with dark curls and Emma's eyes deep brown, wide, full of fear, and something else I couldn't name. Hope, maybe. He stood in the doorway, one hand clutching the strap of a backpack, the other holding a stuffed rabbit that looked like it had been hugged 1,000 times. Ms. Foster knelt beside him, whispering something I couldn't hear. Liam nodded, then took a small step forward. I knelt down too, so we were at the same height. "Hi," I said softly. I'm your grandfather." He stared at me for a long moment, his little face serious. Then quietly he asked, "Are you the man who gave me the wooden birds?" My throat went tight. I nodded. "Yes, that was me." His eyes lit up just a flicker, but it was there. I reached into my jacket and pulled out the robin I'd carved the night before. "I made this one for you, too." Liam stepped closer, reaching out with both hands. He held the bird like it was made of glass, turning it over, running his small fingers along the wings, and then he started to cry. Not loud, just soft, shaky breaths, tears streaming down his cheeks. "Mama said you were the only one who really cared," he whispered. I couldn't hold it together anymore. I pulled him into my arms, and he buried his face in my shoulder, clutching the wooden bird tightly. "I'm here now," I said, my voice breaking. "I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." We sat together on the floor, Dr. Bennett watching quietly from a chair nearby. Liam didn't let go of the bird. He held it in one hand and kept the other on my arm like he was afraid I might disappear. "Can I ask you something?" I said gently. He nodded. "Your mama, did she ever talk to you about the people next door?" His face darkened. The bad man and the angry lady. I felt a chill run through me. "What did she say about them?" Liam looked down, fidgeting with the bird. "She said the bad man used to be nice, but then he changed. And the angry lady, she yelled a lot. Mama was scared of her." "Did you ever see them?" I asked carefully. He nodded. "Sometimes. The angry lady had yellow hair. She came to our house once and yelled at Mama. I hid in my room. I glanced at Dr. Bennett. She gave me a small nod as if to say, 'Keep going.' Liam," I said softly, "do you remember the night before your mama's accident?" He was quiet for a long moment. Then he whispered, "I saw her." "Also who?" "The yellow-haired lady. She was by Mama's car. I looked out my window because I heard a noise. She was bending down near the wheel." My heart stopped. Dr. Bennett leaned forward. "Liam, that's very important. Do you think you could draw what you saw? He looked up at her, then at me. Will it help? Yes, I said. It will help a lot. Dr. Bennett brought over a small table, some paper, and a box of crayons. Liam sat cross-legged on the floor and started drawing. He worked slowly, carefully. First he drew a house, his house, I guessed. Then a car. And then, in the corner, a woman with long yellow hair kneeling by the car's front wheel, holding something in her hand. When he finished, he looked up at me. Is this okay? I swallowed hard. It's perfect, buddy. Detective Miller had been waiting in the hallway. Ms. Foster called him in, and he knelt beside Liam's drawing, studying it closely. You did a great job, Liam, Miller said. Can I take a picture of this? Liam nodded. Miller pulled out his phone and snapped a few photos, then stood and looked at me. His expression was grim. We'll use this, he said quietly. Before we left, Liam ran back to his foster room and returned with a small duffel bag. He unzipped it and carefully pulled out 22 wooden animals, every single one I'd ever given him. They were lined up, neatly wrapped in a soft cloth. Mama kept them safe, he said. She told me they were special. She said you were a good man. She said you'd protect me. I knelt down again, looking him in the eye. I will, Liam, I promise. You're never going to be alone again. He hugged me then tight, like he'd been waiting his whole life to do it. As we walked out of the building, Detective Miller pulled me aside. We got something, he said. Security footage from your street. David's car was parked outside Emma's house the night before the accident. He was there for 20 minutes. I felt the ground shift beneath me. We're building a case, Miller continued. Attorney Wells is filing for emergency custody on your behalf. It's going to take a few weeks, but we're moving fast. I nodded, still trying to process it all. Then his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, frowned, and looked back at me. There's someone who wants to talk to you, he said. The wife of the man who was hurt back in 2015. Her name is Maria Rodriguez. I stared at him. She knows everything, Miller said. And she's been waiting a long time for someone to listen. I didn't know what to expect. A widow who'd spent 9 years searching for answers. A woman whose husband had been taken from her by my son. The coffee shop was quiet that afternoon. Just a few people scattered at small tables, laptops open, voices low. I'd arrived early, ordered a black coffee I couldn't drink, and sat by the window watching the door. Detective Miller had called her, told her I had information. Told her it was time. When she walked in, I knew her immediately. A woman in her early 50s stood near the entrance, scanning the room. She had dark hair streaked with gray, pulled back in a simple ponytail. She wore a nurse's scrubs under a worn jacket like she'd come straight from a shift. Her eyes were tired. The kind of tired that didn't come from one bad night, but from years of carrying something too heavy. She saw me and walked over. Mr. Harrison, I stood, offering my hand. Yes, Mrs. Rodriguez. Thank you for meeting me. She shook my hand, firm, steady, and sat down across from me. She didn't smile, didn't make small talk. Just folded her hands on the table and looked me straight in the eye. Detective Miller said you have information about the person who hit my husband. I nodded, my throat tight. I do, and I'm so sorry it took this long. She studied me for a moment, then leaned back in her chair. Tell me. I took a breath and started from the beginning. I told her about Emma's letter, about David, about the night of August 15th, 2015. Maria's face didn't change as I spoke, but her hands tightened around the edge of the table. You're my husband, Michael, she said quietly when I'd finished. He was 42, an electrical engineer, a good man, a good father. Her voice cracked just a little. We had 3 kids. Our oldest was 15. Our daughter was 12. Our youngest was only 8. She paused, swallowing hard. Michael was walking home from a late shift. It was only 6 blocks. He always walked when the weather was nice. She looked out the window, her eyes distant. Someone hit him at the intersection of Elm and Maple. hit him and drove away. The police found him an hour later. He was already gone. I felt like I couldn't breathe. They searched for weeks, she continued. Looked for witnesses, checked cameras, but there was nothing. No leads, no suspects, just a hit-and-run case that went cold. She looked back at me, and I saw the weight of 9 years in her eyes. I knew someone out there knew the truth. I knew someone was walking around living their life pretending it didn't happen. And I prayed every single day that someone would come forward, that someone would tell me who took my husband from me. Her voice broke. And now you're here. I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder. My hands were shaking. This is a copy of Emma's letter, I said, sliding it across the table. She wrote about a conversation she had with my son in 2016. He told her what happened that night. He said he'd been drinking. He said he hit someone and panicked, and he drove away. Maria read the letter slowly, her lips pressed into a thin line. When she finished, she set it down and stared at it for a long moment. He told her, she whispered. He told her, and she kept it secret. She was scared, I said. Scared of what he might do, scared for her son. But she kept records. She kept everything. I pulled out the second document, a receipt from a private garage dated August 16, 2015. The day after Michael was hit, David had his car repaired the next morning, I said. Front bumper damage, headlight replaced. He paid cash. Maria stared at the receipt, her hands trembling now. "Hi, this is it," she said, her voice barely audible. "This is proof," I nodded. "Detective Miller is using it to build a case. But he needs witnesses, people who can testify about the impact, about what David took from you and your family." Maria looked up at me, tears streaming down her face now. "My oldest son had to drop out of college," she said. "He got a job at a warehouse to help me pay the bills. He was supposed to be an architect. Now he works 60-hour weeks just to keep us afloat." She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "My daughter, she couldn't handle it. She fell into a depression. She tried to hurt herself. Twice. She's better now, but she's still struggling. She's 21, and she's already been through more than most people go through in a lifetime." Her voice shook. "And my youngest, he's 17 now. He never got to meet his father. He doesn't remember him. All he has are stories and photographs." I felt the guilt crash over me like a wave. "I'm so sorry," I said, my voice breaking. "I'm so sorry for what my son did, for what he took from you." Maria reached across the table and took my hand. "You're not him," she said firmly. "You're not responsible for what he did." "But I should have known," I said. "I should have paid more attention. If I'd seen the signs, if I'd asked the right questions back in 2015, maybe I could have stopped him. Maybe I could have brought him to justice before he hurt anyone else." Maria squeezed my hand. You didn't know," she said. "And now you're doing the right thing. That's what matters." She pulled out her phone and made 3 calls, one to each of her children. I listened as she explained what I'd told her. Her voice was steady, now determined. When she hung up, she looked at me. "They want to testify," she said. "All 3 of them. They want justice." I nodded, relief flooding through me. "Your son took my husband," she said, her voice hard now. "He destroyed my family. He let us suffer for 9 years while he went on with his life. I won't let him destroy your family too. I won't let him hurt anyone else." My phone buzzed. A text from Detective Miller. "Search warrant approved. Executing tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. Stay at the hotel. Do not go home." I showed Maria the message. "They're going to arrest him?" she asked. They're going to try," I said. "But Miller warned me David and Sarah might run. Or they might do something desperate." Maria's jaw tightened. "Then we have to move fast." As we stood to leave, she took my hand again. "Mr. Harrison," she said, "I've spent 9 years hating the person who did this. Hating them without a name, without a face. And now I know. And I know it's your son. I can't imagine how hard that is for you. I couldn't speak. But we're going to stop him. She said, her voice fierce. Together. We're going to make sure he doesn't hurt anyone else. We're going to get justice. For Michael. For Emma. For Liam. For all of us. I nodded, tears blurring my vision. Together, I said. She squeezed my hand one more time, then turned and walked out into the gray afternoon. I stood there for a long moment, staring at the empty table, the letter, the receipt. My son had destroyed so many lives, and tomorrow it would all come to light. If you're still here, comment still watching, so I know you're with me. And tell me this. If you were in my place, would you keep digging for the truth? Even if it meant everything could fall apart. Because what happened next wasn't just shocking, it changed everything. And just a quick note. The next part includes some dramatized elements for storytelling purposes. If this isn't for you, feel free to stop here. I woke to the sound of machines beeping. My head throbbed. My ribs ached. The fluorescent lights above were too bright, and for a moment I didn't know where I was. Mr. Harrison, can you hear me? A nurse leaned over me, checking the monitor beside the bed. You're at Hartford General. You were in a car accident this morning. Your brakes failed. You're very lucky to be alive. The accident, the tightness in my chest, the road blurring. It all came rushing back. What time is it? I croaked. 2 o'clock in the afternoon. 9 hours. I'd been unconscious for 9 hours. My phone buzzed on the table beside me. I reached for it with shaking hands. 3 missed calls. All from Detective Miller. I pressed call back. He answered on the first ring. Mr. Harrison. Thank God. I've been trying to reach you all morning. I was in an accident. I said, my voice still hoarse. My brakes. I know. His voice was grim. We'll talk about that later. But right now, I need you to see something. It happened this morning while you were in the ER. I'm sending you a video. A moment later, my phone buzzed. A video file. I tapped it. The screen filled with body cam footage. Pre-dawn darkness. A residential street. And then SWAT officers storming a house. David and Sarah's house. Hartford police search warrant opened the door. The door splintered. Officers flooded inside, weapons drawn, voices shouting commands. And there in the living room was my son. David stood in his pajamas. Hands raised, his face pale with shock. Sarah stumbled out of the bedroom, her mouth open in a scream I couldn't hear through the footage. Within seconds, both of them were on the ground, hands cuffed behind their backs. I watched numb as they were hauled to their feet and led outside. David's eyes darted left and right, searching for an escape that didn't exist. Sarah's face was a mask of fury. 2 patrol cars waited in the driveway. They were separated, David in one, Sarah in the other. The doors slammed shut. The video ended. I sat there staring at the black screen, my heart pounding. My son, in handcuffs. 2 hours later, Detective Miller arrived at the hospital. He pulled a chair close to my bed and set a thick evidence bag on the table between us. We executed the search warrant at 6 this morning, he said. While you were in surgery. We seized computers, phones, financial records, and a few other things I need to show you. He reached into the bag and pulled out a laptop, Sarah's, judging by the floral sticker on the cover. We found her search history, Miller said, opening a file on his phone and turning the screen toward me. I read the list. How to cut brake lines. Undetectable substances for elderly patients. Life insurance payout after accidental death. Countries without extradition treaties. My stomach turned. All of these searches were made in the 2 weeks leading up to Emma Carter's death, Miller said quietly. And again, 3 days ago, right before your accident. He reached into the bag again. This time he pulled out a bank receipt. March 14th, 2 days after Emma died. Sarah withdrew $15,000 in cash. No explanation. No paper trail. I stared at the receipt. The date. The amount. And this? Miller continued pulling out 2 passports and a printed itinerary. We found these in a suitcase under their bed. 2 tickets to Mexico. Departure date March 28th, 4 days from now. I looked at him. They were going to run. Yes. He reached into the bag one last time and pulled out something I didn't expect. 6 objects. Soft, fabric, shaped like pregnancy belly inserts, Miller said. Increasing sizes. We found them in Sarah's dresser. I stared at them, my mind reeling. We pulled her medical records, Miller continued. She had a termination procedure 2 years ago, but there's no record of any prenatal visits, no OB appointments, no ultrasounds, nothing. She faked it, I whispered. Yes, for over a year. We're still trying to figure out why. But our theory is that she used the fake pregnancy to create a picture of a stable, happy family and to pressure Emma, to make it look like Emma was harassing a pregnant woman. I closed my eyes. The room felt like it was spinning, all of it. The fence, the lawsuits, the threats, the fake pregnancy. It had all been a lie. That evening, Miller arranged a video call. I didn't want to do it, but he insisted. He's asking for you, Miller said. And frankly, we need to see how he reacts. They set up a tablet on a stand beside my hospital bed. On the screen, a small room, gray walls, a metal table, and my son. David sat in an orange jumpsuit, his hands cuffed to the table. His face was drawn, his eyes red and swollen. When he saw me, he started to cry. He choked out. Dad, please. You have to believe me. I didn't do this. I didn't hurt Emma. I didn't touch your pills. This is all Sarah. She did everything. I didn't even know. I said nothing. Please, he begged. I made mistakes. I know I did. But I never wanted anyone to get hurt. You have to believe me. I leaned forward, my voice cold. What about 2015, David? He froze. See the man you hit, the man you left on the side of the road. Did you want him to get hurt? His face crumpled. That was an accident. I was young. I was scared. I didn't know what to do. You knew enough to run, Dad. And what about Liam? I said, my voice rising. Your son. You abandoned him for 8 years. You built a fence to keep him out. You let Sarah terrorize his mother. And now she's gone. David shook his head, tears streaming down his face. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't. You're not sorry, I said. You're just sorry you got caught. I reached over and closed the laptop. The bail hearing was held the next afternoon. I didn't attend, but Miller called me with the results. Bail denied, he said. For both of them. Judge said they're flight risks. The evidence is overwhelming fake identities in the suitcase cash withdrawal tickets to Mexico, plus the severity of the charges. What are the charges? I asked. For David, vehicular manslaughter in the 2015 case. Conspiracy, accessory to attempted harm. For Sarah, first-degree intentional harm in Emma Carter's death. Conspiracy, attempted harm against you. If convicted, David's looking at 40 to 50 years. Sarah's looking at life without parole. I closed my eyes. Life without parole. The trial's set for 60 days from now, Miller continued. We'll need you to testify. And we'll need Liam if Dr. Bennett clears him. I'll be there, I said. That night, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello, heavy breathing, then a voice. Low, cold. You think you've won, David said, but you haven't. You have no idea what you've done. You've destroyed this family. You've destroyed me. And for what? A woman who was nothing. A kid who doesn't even know you. My hands tightened around the phone. When I get out of here, he continued, his voice shaking with rage. You're going to regret this. I swear to God you're going to. I hung up. My hands were trembling. I set the phone down on the table and stared at it, half expecting it to ring again. But it didn't. A moment later, Detective Miller called. We found something in Sarah's car. He said, his voice urgent. You need to see this. Right now. What is it? I can't explain over the phone. I'm coming to the hospital. Don't go anywhere. He hung up. I sat there in the dark hospital room, my heart pounding, waiting for whatever nightmare was coming next. She looked so much like Emma, it hurt. Same dark hair, same sharp eyes, same way of tilting her head when she was thinking. But where Emma had been soft and warm, Rachel was all sharp edges, tailored blazer designer bag heels that clicked on the coffee shop floor like a countdown. We'd agreed to meet the morning after her phone call. I'd barely slept. Again. She sat down across from me, folding her hands on the table, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. Thank you for meeting me, she said finally. Her voice was calm, controlled, professional. You said we needed to talk about Liam, I said. She nodded. I did. But first I need to explain something. Emma and we hadn't spoken in 10 years. I frowned. 10 years. We had a fight, Rachel said quietly. When she told me she was pregnant. I was 22, fresh out of college, and I thought I knew everything. I told her she should terminate the pregnancy, that she was too young, that David wasn't going to come back, that she was ruining her life. She looked down at her hands. She told me I didn't understand, that she was keeping the baby. And then she stopped answering my calls, stopped replying to my emails. She cut me out completely. Her voice cracked just a little. I didn't know she'd moved to Hartford. I didn't know about the harassment. I didn't know about any of it until I saw the news 2 days ago. She looked up at me, her eyes shining with tears she was trying hard not to shed. Had I spent 10 years being angry at her, she said. And now she's gone, and I can't apologize. I can't tell her I was wrong. I didn't know what to say, but I can do something for her son. Rachel continued, her voice steadying. I can give him the life she couldn't. And there it was. I live in San Francisco, Rachel said, pulling out her phone and showing me photos. A beautiful house with bay windows and a manicured lawn, a modern kitchen, a backyard with a swing set. 5 bedrooms, she said. Good schools nearby. My husband Marcus is a software engineer. We're financially stable. Very stable. She swiped to another photo, a smiling man with kind eyes holding a golden retriever. We've been trying to have children for 3 years, she said quietly. It hasn't worked out. But we have room. We have resources. And Liam is family. She looked at me. I make $320,000 a year, Mr. Harrison. I can give him private tutors, music lessons, summer camps, college funds. I can give him opportunities Emma never had. I felt my chest tighten. Emma named me in her will, I said. She wanted me to raise him. Rachel leaned back, her expression softening. I read the will. But with all due respect, Mr. Harrison, Emma wrote that will when she was desperate. She didn't know I'd come back. She didn't know I'd want to help. She knew exactly what she was doing. I said, my voice firmer now. She chose me. Not because I have money, not because I have a big house, but because I was there. For 8 years, I was the only person who cared about that boy. Rachel's jaw tightened. And I respect that. I do. But Liam needs more than sentiment. He needs stability. He needs a future. He needs love, I said. And you think a 68-year-old man can give him that better than I can? Rachel shot back. The words hung in the air like a slap. I took a breath, trying to keep my voice steady. Because Emma didn't want him living in a gilded cage, I said. She didn't want him to have tutors and summer camps and a big house. She wanted him to feel safe. She wanted him to be loved. And she trusted me to do that. Rachel stared at me for a long moment. Then she stood, reaching into her bag and pulling out a business card. "I've hired an attorney," she said. "I'm filing for custody. I'm sorry, Mr. Harrison. I know this isn't easy, but I'm not walking away from my nephew." She set the card on the table and walked out. I called Attorney Wells as soon as I got back to the hotel. "She's serious," Wells said after I explained. "Rachel Carter." I looked her up. Marketing director at a major tech firm. No criminal record. Married, financially sound. "Can she win?" I asked. Wells hesitated. "In a custody case, the court looks at what's in the best interest of the child. Rachel has advantages: age, income, a two-parent home. But you have advantages too. Emma's will, your relationship with Liam, the fact that he already knows you and trusts you. So what happens now?" "Family court hearing," Wells said. 5 days from now. You'll both present your case. A judge will decide." I closed my eyes. 5 days, Mr. Harrison," Wells said gently. "This is going to be hard, but we have a strong case. Don't lose hope." The bail hearing was that afternoon. I sat in the back of the courtroom with Maria Rodriguez beside me. David and Sarah were brought in separately, both in orange jumpsuits, hands cuffed. David looked broken. Sarah looked defiant. Judge Elena Alvarez, a stern woman in her mid-50s, reviewed the charges with cold precision. "The defendants are charged with vehicular manslaughter, conspiracy evidence tampering, and 2 counts of attempted harm," she said. "The state has requested that both be held without bail due to flight risk." David's attorney stood. "Your Honor, my client has deep ties to the community." "Your client had tickets to Mexico dated 3 days from now," Judge Alvarez interrupted. "Packed bags, $15,000 in cash. I'd say that's a pretty clear indication of flight risk." The attorney sat down. "Bail is denied," the judge said. "Trial is set for 60 days from today." Maria squeezed my hand. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. "Mr. Harrison, do you have a statement?" I stopped, took a breath, and looked directly into the cameras. "My son is responsible for terrible things," I said, "and I will not defend him. Justice is more important than blood." The cameras flashed, questions exploded, but I walked away. That night my phone rang. An unknown number. A recorded message. "You have a call from an inmate at Hartford Correctional Facility." I almost hung up, but I didn't. "Dad," David's voice, quiet, cold. I just want you to know," he said, "if you take that boy away from me, if you try to turn him against me, you're going to regret it." My blood ran cold. "You already lost him," I said, "the day you abandoned him." I hung up. 10 minutes later, Detective Miller called. "Mr. Harrison," he said, "we found something in Sarah's car. You need to see this right now." Miller laid the evidence bag on the hospital table like he was handling something dangerous. I'd been in the hospital for 2 days. Cracked ribs, broken wrist, bruises that went bone deep. Every breath hurt. Every movement reminded me of the crash, the sickening lurch, the crunch of metal the moment the world flipped upside down. But I was alive. Miller pulled up a chair beside my bed. "How are you feeling?" "Like I got hit by a truck," I said. He almost smiled, but his face was too grim. "Mr. Harrison, we found something in Sarah's car. The trunk. I need you to see this." He opened the bag, carefully laying the contents out one by one on the tray table. A professional brake cutting kit. Compact, heavy-duty, the kind mechanics use. A pair of rubber gloves, stained with brake fluid. A receipt from an auto parts store. Dated March 9th, $240, paid in cash. And a phone, small, cheap. The kind you buy at a gas station and throw away after. A burner phone. Miller turned it on. The screen flickered to life. 37 messages, he said. All between Sarah and one contact. No name, just a number. He scrolled through them. I watched the dates pass. March 8th, March 10th, March 22nd. He stopped on one message, held the phone so I could read it. March 8th, 11:47 p.m. Cut the brake lines tonight. Make it look like an accident. 5,000 when it's done. I felt the air leave my lungs. Miller scrolled down. March 22nd, 10:32 p.m. New target, the old man. Same method. Another $5,000. I stared at the screen. The old man. Me. Miller set the phone down. We traced the number. It belongs to a woman named Jessica Burke, 32 years old. Mechanic. Prior record for fraud and petty theft. She did this, I whispered. She did, Miller said. We arrested her yesterday. She confessed. Sarah paid her $2,500 up front. Promised another $2,500 after you were gone. I closed my eyes. The room felt too small, too hot. Jessica cut the brake lines on your car the night of March 22nd. Miller continued. She waited until after dark. Crawled under your car in the hotel parking lot. It took her less than 10 minutes. I thought about that night. I'd been sitting in my room, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Liam, about Emma, about everything that had gone wrong. And outside, someone was sabotaging my car. Why? I asked. My voice cracked. Why did Sarah want me gone? Miller leaned back in his chair. We think there are two reasons. One, you knew the truth. You had the letter, the DNA test, the evidence. As long as you were alive, you were a threat. He paused. And two, money. We found a life insurance policy in David's name. $800,000. You're the beneficiary. If you died before the case went to trial, David would inherit everything. I felt sick. She was going to make it look like an accident, Miller said. Just like Emma. Brake failure, tragic. No one would question it. But I survived, I said. You survived, Miller said, because you're lucky, or stubborn, maybe both. I thought about the crash. About the moment I realized the brakes weren't working. It came back in flashes, sharp, disjointed, terrifying. I'd woken early that morning, March 23rd, just after 5. I couldn't sleep. My ribs still ached from the medication incident 2 weeks earlier, and my mind was spinning with everything Miller had told me the day before. The search warrant. The arrest planned for 6 a.m. I decided to drive to a bakery a few miles away. I needed to clear my head, needed to do something normal. I got in the car, turned the key, pulled out of the hotel parking lot. The roads were empty, dark. The sun hadn't come up yet. I drove for 10 minutes winding through quiet streets, and then I hit the hill. It wasn't steep, just a long, gradual slope that led down toward the main road. I'd driven it a dozen times. I pressed the brake as I started the descent. Nothing. I pressed again, harder. The pedal went straight to the floor. No resistance, no friction, just empty air. My heart stopped. The car picked up speed, 30 miles an hour, 40, 50. I yanked the emergency brake. It snapped off in my hand. Broken. The car was flying now. The road blurred. The intersection at the bottom loomed closer, red light, cross traffic, no way to stop. I had seconds. I yanked the wheel hard to the right, aiming for the median strip, a raised concrete barrier separating the lanes. Better to hit that than another car. Better to crash than to hurt someone else. The tires screamed. The car lurched sideways, and then I hit. The airbag exploded in my face. The world spun. Metal shrieked. Glass shattered. The car flipped. I remember the weightlessness. The terrible, sickening moment of being upside down, suspended, waiting for the impact. Then the roof caved in, and everything went dark. When I woke, I was here. White ceiling tiles, beeping machines, a nurse telling me I'd been in an accident. But it wasn't an accident. It was attempted murder. Miller was watching me. You remember it now, I nodded. My throat was too tight to speak. The paramedics said you were unconscious for 20 minutes, Miller said. A passerby saw the crash and called 911. If they'd been a few minutes later, he didn't finish. I called your lawyer. I said, my voice hoarse. I want them to get the maximum sentence. Life, no parole. Miller nodded. We're pushing for it. With the evidence we have, Jessica's confession, the text messages, the brake-cutting kit, Sarah's looking at first-degree charges. Premeditated. She planned this. She paid for it. And she almost succeeded. But she didn't, I said. No, Miller said quietly. She didn't. The next day, Ms. Foster brought Liam to visit. He stood in the doorway, small and scared, clutching that same stuffed rabbit. When he saw me, bandaged, bruised wrist in a cast, his face crumpled. They hurt you again, he whispered. I held out my good hand. Come here, buddy. He ran to me, burying his face in my shoulder. I wrapped my arm around him, ignoring the pain in my ribs. I'm okay, I said. I'm still here. I was scared. He said, his voice muffled. Ms. Foster said you were in the hospital. I thought you were going to leave like Mama. My chest tightened. I'm not going anywhere, Liam. I promise. He pulled back, looking at me with those big dark eyes, Emma's eyes. Are the bad people gone? He asked. Yes, I said. They can't hurt us anymore. Are you sure? I'm sure. He climbed carefully onto the bed, curling up beside me. I held him close, feeling his small body relax against mine. I'm scared, he whispered. I am too, I said. But we're going to be brave together. Okay, he nodded. We sat like that for a long time, just the two of us. Quiet, safe. 2 days later, the doctor cleared me to leave. Miller drove me back to the hotel. As we pulled into the parking lot, he turned to me. The family court hearing is tomorrow, he said. You and Rachel. The judge will make a decision. I looked at him. I survived 3 attempts on my life. You think I'm going to lose a custody battle? Miller smiled just a little. No, I don't think you will. I got out of the car, stood in the cool evening air, and looked up at the sky. Tomorrow I would fight for my grandson, and I would win. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected. Quieter. Like a place where whispers decided fates. I sat at a wooden table on the left side of the room, Attorney Wells beside me, her briefcase open, papers neatly arranged. My left arm was still in a cast, the bruises on my ribs hidden under a pressed shirt and jacket. I dressed as well as I could. This mattered. Across the aisle, Rachel sat with her attorney, a man in an expensive suit, perfectly tailored, confident. Rachel looked composed, professional. Her hair pulled back, minimal makeup, a navy dress that said, responsible adult. She didn't look at me. At the front of the room, Judge Elena Alvarez sat behind the bench, reading through a file. She was in her mid-50s, gray hair, sharp eyes, the kind of person who'd heard every excuse and saw through all of them. Behind us in the gallery sat Ms. Foster and Dr. Bennett. And in a small chair near the judge's bench, Liam sat quietly holding that same stuffed rabbit. He looked so small. Judge Alvarez looked up. We're here today to determine custody of Liam Carter, age 8. Mr. Harris and Ms. Carter, both of you are seeking full custody. I've reviewed the filings. Let's begin. She nodded to Rachel's attorney. He stood buttoning his jacket and walked to the center of the room. Your Honor. He began, his voice smooth and practiced. My client, Rachel Carter, is Liam's maternal aunt. She's a marketing director at a Fortune 500 company in San Francisco, earning $320,000 annually. She owns a 5-bedroom home in a top-rated school district. She and her husband are financially stable with no criminal record, no history of substance issues, and a strong support network. He gestured toward Rachel. Ms. Carter deeply regrets the estrangement from her sister, but she's here now, ready to provide Liam with the life Emma couldn't: a stable home, excellent schools, every opportunity to thrive. He paused, letting the words settle. Mr. Harrison, on the other hand, is 68 years old. He's recently survived 3 separate incidents that put him in the hospital. His health is declining. And while I don't doubt his affection for the boy, we have to ask the difficult question: can he realistically care for an 8-year-old child for the next 10 to 15 years? He sat down. Judge Alvarez looked at Wells. Counsel. Wells stood. She was calm, steady. She'd been doing this for 30 years. Your Honor, she said. Emma Carter's will is clear. She explicitly named Thomas Harrison as Liam's guardian, not her sister, not a distant relative. Mr. Harrison, because for 8 years he was the only person who cared. She walked over to our table, picked up a folder, and held it up. Emma documented her reasons. She wrote about the bond between Mr. Harrison and Liam, about the trust, about the love. Rachel Carter, by her own admission, had not spoken to her sister in 10 years. She has never met Liam, never sent a card, never made a phone call. Wells set the folder down and looked directly at Rachel's attorney. My client is 68, yes, but he's in good health. He has $240,000 in savings, a home valued at $380,000, and a detailed plan for Liam's education and care. More importantly, he has something money can't buy: a relationship. Liam knows him, trusts him, loves him. She sat down. Judge Alvarez nodded. I'd like to hear from the parties. Ms. Carter, you may take the stand. Rachel stood, walked to the witness box, and was sworn in. Her attorney asked the first question. Ms. Carter, why are you seeking custody of Liam? Rachel took a breath. Because I failed my sister. 10 years ago, when she needed me most, I told her she was making a mistake. I told her to end the pregnancy. And when she refused, I walked away. I was young. I was selfish. And I've regretted it every day since. Her voice cracked. I didn't know what she was going through. I didn't know about the harassment, the fear. I didn't know she was raising Liam alone. And now she's gone. And I can't apologize to her. But I can help her son. I can give him the life she wanted for him. She looked at the judge. I know I wasn't there before, but I'm here now. Wells stood. Ms. Carter, have you ever met Liam? Rachel hesitated. No. Did you ever visit your sister in Hartford? No. Did you send money off or help? No. Wells paused. So, for 10 years, while Emma struggled to raise your nephew alone, you did nothing. I didn't know. You didn't ask, Wells said quietly. Rachel's face fell. She looked down at her hands. Judge Alvarez gestured to me. Mr. Harrison, please take the stand. I stood, walked to the witness box, and was sworn in. Wells approached. Mr. Harrison, how long have you known Liam? 8 years, I said, since he was a baby. How did you meet him? I took a breath. There was a hole in the fence, between my yard and Emma's. I saw him through it one day. He was crying. So I gave him a wooden bird I'd carved. And after that, I kept coming back, 2-3 times a week. I'd bring him little animals I'd made. I'd read to him. When he got older, I taught him how to carve. Did you know he was your grandson? Not at first. But Emma told me about 6 months before she passed. She did a DNA test. 99.97% match. Wells held up a photo. Is this the fence? I looked at it. The 10-foot wall David had built. The small gap at the bottom. Yes. And these... She held up a bag containing 22 wooden animals. Those are the ones I gave him. Emma kept them. All of them. Why do you think she kept them? I felt my throat tighten. Because they meant something. To her. To Liam. They were proof that someone cared. Wells nodded. Mr. Harrison, why do you want custody of Liam? Because I love him, I said simply. I've watched him grow up. I've been there for him when no one else was, and Emma trusted me to take care of him. I'm not going to let her down. Rachel's attorney stood. Mr. Harrison, you're 68 years old. You've been hospitalized 3 times in the past month. What happens if you get sick? What happens if you pass away? I looked at him. Then at least he'll know he was loved. And that's worth more than all the money in the world. The courtroom was silent. Judge Alvarez leaned forward. I'd like to speak with Liam. Ms. Foster brought him to the stand. He looked terrified. The judge smiled gently. Hi, Liam. I'm Judge Alvarez. You're not in trouble, okay? I just want to ask you one question. He nodded. Who do you want to live with? Liam looked at me, then at Rachel, then back at the judge. Grandpa, he said quietly. He's my family. Rachel's face crumpled. She covered her mouth with her hand, tears streaming down her face. Judge Alvarez nodded. Thank you, Liam. You can sit down. Rachel stood suddenly. Your Honor, I'd like to withdraw my petition. The room went still. Ms. Carter, her attorney, began. No, she said firmly. She looked at the judge. Emma chose Mr. Harrison for a reason. I see that now. I won't take that away from Liam. She turned to Liam, her voice breaking. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry I wasn't there for your mom. But I'm here now. Not to take you away. Just to be your aunt. If you'll let me. Liam looked at me. I nodded. He looked back at Rachel. Okay, Judge Alvarez took a breath. Very well. In light of Ms. Carter's withdrawal and based on the evidence presented, I grant full custody of Liam Carter to Thomas Harrison. Rachel Carter is granted visitation rights to be arranged at Mr. Harrison's discretion. She tapped her gavel. This hearing is adjourned. Liam ran to me. I caught him with my good arm, holding him tight. I get to stay with you, he said, his voice muffled against my shoulder. Forever, I said. Rachel walked over. She held out her hand. Thank you, she said, for loving him. I shook her hand. You're welcome to visit. Anytime. She nodded, wiping her eyes. I'd like that. Outside the courthouse, my phone rang. Detective Miller. Mr. Harrison, he said. The trial starts in 4 weeks. David and Sarah. Are you ready? I looked down at Liam, holding my hand. Yes, I said. I'm ready. The first week Liam moved in, I turned the spare bedroom into his room. New bed. Bookshelf. A desk by the window where the light was good. I hung a framed photo of Emma on the wall, one I'd found in the envelope she'd left me. She was smiling, holding a baby Liam, her eyes tired but full of love. And on the shelf, I placed all 22 wooden animals. Liam stood in the doorway holding his backpack, looking around like he couldn't believe it was real. This is yours, I said, for as long as you want it. He set his backpack down carefully. Then he unzipped it and pulled out a notebook, 100 pages, spiral-bound edges worn, filled with Emma's handwriting. Mama said to give this to you, he said quietly. I took it, my hands shaking. What is it? Her diary. I looked down at the cover. No title. Just Emma's name in the corner written in faded ink. She wrote in it every night, Liam said. She said if something happened to her, you'd need it. I sat down on the edge of the bed. Thank you, buddy. He nodded and left the room. I opened the diary. January 15th, 2023. Sarah screamed at me in the driveway today, in front of Liam. She said I'd ruined their lives, that I was a liar and a stalker. I just stood there. I didn't know what to say. Liam asked me later why the angry lady hates us. I told him some people are just scared. But the truth is, I'm the one who's scared. June 22nd, 2023. 4th lawsuit. This time over a tree branch that fell into their yard during a storm. They're saying I'm responsible for property damage. My lawyer says it'll cost me at least $1,900 to settle. I'm running out of money. But I won't leave. Liam deserves to know his father, even if David refuses to acknowledge him. September 10th, 2023. I saw Sarah today at the grocery store. She was buying baby clothes. She smiled at me, like she'd won something. But I know the truth. She's faking it. I've been watching. She's never been to a doctor, never had an ultrasound. I don't know why she's pretending to be pregnant, but I know it's part of their plan to make me look unstable, to make me seem like the problem. December 3rd, 2023. I hired a lawyer today, Jennifer Wells. She's helping me write a will. I'm naming Thomas as Liam's guardian. I had a DNA test done just in case something happens to me. 99.97% match. Liam is David's son and Thomas's grandson. I'm also gathering everything I can about the 2015 accident, the hit and run. I found the old news articles. I have the dates. I have David's confession, or at least what he told me years ago. If something happens to me, I want the truth to come out. Michael Rodriguez's family deserves justice. February 14th, 2024. Sarah cornered me in the driveway tonight. She leaned in close and whispered, "If you don't leave, you'll regret it." I didn't say anything. I just walked inside and locked the door, but my hands were shaking. I know she means it. I know they're planning something. March 10th, 2024. I'm scared. I saw someone near my car tonight, a woman with blonde hair. I couldn't see her face, but I know it was Sarah. I don't know what she was doing, but I'm afraid. If something happens to me, if I die, it wasn't an accident. Please, Thomas, protect my son. Get justice for Michael's family. Don't let them win. I closed the diary. My hands were shaking. March 10th, 2 days before Emma died. She'd known. She'd seen Sarah tampering with her car, and she'd written it down. That evening, Liam came into the living room while I was sitting on the couch, the diary on the table in front of me. "Did you read it?" he asked. I nodded. "Some of it." "Can you read it to me?" I hesitated. "There are parts that might be hard to hear. I want to know," he said. I picked up the diary and flipped to a different page. One from earlier, before the fear set in. April 12th, 2022. Liam took his first steps today. 3 wobbly steps from the couch to the coffee table. He was so proud of himself. He clapped his hands and laughed. I cried. I wish his father could see this. But if David won't be here, I'm grateful Thomas is. He brought Liam a wooden turtle today. Liam carried it around all afternoon. I read it aloud. Liam smiled. "Mama wrote a lot about you," he said. She did," he nodded. "She said you were the only one who cared." I felt my throat tighten. "Your mama was very brave, Liam. She knew there were people who wanted to hurt her, but she wasn't afraid. Because she loved you." Did she know she was going to die? I looked at him. His eyes were so much like Emma's. "I think she knew something bad might happen," I said carefully. "But she wasn't giving up. She was fighting for you. And for the truth." He crawled onto the couch beside me. "I miss her." "I know, buddy, I do too." 2 weeks before the trial, I met with ADA Catherine Santos. She was in her early 40s, sharp-eyed, no-nonsense. We sat in her office at the Hartford courthouse, case files spread across her desk. "Mr. Harrison," she said, "I'm not going to sugarcoat this. What we're dealing with here is one of the most calculated cases I've ever prosecuted." She opened the file. So in David Harrison vehicular manslaughter in the 2015 death of Michael Rodriguez. Conspiracy to commit harm. 2 counts of attempted harm, 1 against Emma Carter, 1 against you. She flipped to the next page. Sarah Harrison, first-degree intentional harm in the death of Emma Carter. Conspiracy. 2 counts of attempted harm. Harassment. Obstruction of justice. She looked up at me. "We have overwhelming evidence. The burner phone, The text messages. Jessica Burke's confession. The brake-cutting kit. Emma's diary. Your testimony. Maria Rodriguez's testimony. And if Liam is up for it, his drawing. Will he have to testify? I asked. Only if Dr. Bennett clears him, Santos said. And only if you're comfortable with it. But it would be powerful. A child's perspective carries weight. I nodded slowly. I'll talk to him. We also need you to walk the jury through everything, Santos said. The 8 years, the fence, the wooden animals, the 3 attempts on your life. Can you do that? Yes, I said. I'll do whatever it takes. Liam started seeing Dr. Bennett 3 times a week. She worked with him gently, art therapy mostly. He drew pictures of Emma, of the house, of the fence. One day, I sat in the waiting room while they had a session. When they came out, Dr. Bennett pulled me aside. He's resilient, she said. But testifying will be hard. He'll have to talk about his mother, about what he saw, about being scared. I'll be there, I said. The whole time. I know, she said. That's the only reason I'm even considering it. 3 days before the trial, Rachel called. I'd like to come visit, she said. If that's okay. I hesitated. Then I thought about what Emma had written in the diary, about family, about forgiveness. Yes, I said, come. She flew in from San Francisco the next day. She brought gifts, a skateboard, a set of art supplies, a book about birds. Liam was shy at first, but Rachel sat on the floor with him looking through Emma's photo albums, telling him stories. Your mom was the bravest person I ever knew, Rachel said. When we were kids, she wasn't afraid of anything. She climbed trees, caught frogs, made up stories. You're just like her. Liam looked up at her. Really, really. He smiled. The night before the trial, I sat on the porch looking across the yard toward Emma's house. It was empty now. Dark. The fence still stood, casting long shadows in the moonlight. I thought about the 8 years I'd spent kneeling by that fence. The sound of Liam's laughter. The way Emma would sit on the other side with her coffee, exhausted, but never giving up. I promise. I whispered into the dark. I'll get justice, and I'll take care of him. I swear. The next morning I put on my best suit. Liam came into the kitchen while I was making coffee. He looked small in his pajamas, holding that stuffed rabbit. Good luck, Grandpa, he said. I knelt down and pulled him into a hug. This is for your mama. He nodded against my shoulder. I know. The courtroom was packed. Every seat filled. Reporters in the back row, cameras banned, but notebooks out. Maria sat in the 3rd row, her hands folded tightly in her lap. Rachel beside her, pale but steady. And at the front, behind the defense table, my son. David sat hunched in an orange jumpsuit, hands cuffed in front of him. He'd lost weight. His face was hollow eyes, sunken. He looked smaller than I remembered. Broken. Beside him sat his attorney, Richard Reed, a public defender in his mid-40s briefcase worn at the edges. At the other table, Sarah sat perfectly still. No tears, no emotion. Just cold, hard defiance. Her attorney, Lisa Morgan, was younger, sharper, already flipping through notes. Judge Patricia Coleman entered 62, silver hair, no-nonsense expression. We all stood. Please be seated, she said. Her voice carried. We are here for the trial of David Harrison and Sarah Harrison, charged with multiple counts, including vehicular manslaughter, conspiracy, and attempted harm. The jury has been sworn in. We will now hear opening statements. She nodded toward ADA Santos. Santos stood. She walked slowly to the center of the room, her heels clicking on the polished floor. She looked at the jury, 12 ordinary people holding the power to decide my son's fate. This is a case about 2 people who thought they were above the law. Santos began. Her voice was calm, steady. In 2015, David Harrison took the life of Michael Rodriguez. He was drunk. He hit a man walking home from work, and he drove away. He never called for help, never turned himself in. He paid cash to fix his car and buried the truth for 9 years. She paused, letting the words settle. In 2024, Sarah Harrison ended the life of Emma Carter, a single mother raising her son alone. Sarah hired someone to cut Emma's brake lines. She made it look like an accident. And when Emma's father-in-law Thomas Harrison discovered the truth, they tried to make him disappear too. Santos turned and looked directly at David and Sarah. Chatiku. Together they conspired to harm Thomas Harrison. They tampered with his medication. They cut his brake lines. They were willing to take his life, his own father's life, to keep their secrets buried. She walked back to her table, picked up a folder. The evidence is overwhelming. Receipts, text messages, confessions, forensic reports, witness testimony. By the end of this trial, you will see the truth, and you will hold them accountable. She sat down. Judge Coleman looked at the defense. Mr. Reed stood. He looked tired. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, he said, my client made a terrible mistake in 2015. He was young. He was scared. He panicked. That doesn't make it right, but it also doesn't make him the monster the prosecution is painting him to be. He gestured toward the evidence table. The prosecution will show you circumstantial evidence, a receipt, a conversation that happened years ago. But there's no direct proof. No witness who saw my client behind the wheel that night. No confession. He sat down. Lisa Morgan stood. My client Sarah Harrison is accused of something she didn't do. Yes, she searched things online. But searching isn't a crime. Thinking isn't a crime. The prosecution has no physical evidence linking her to Emma Carter's car. No fingerprints, no DNA, just speculation. She sat. Judge Coleman nodded. The prosecution may call its first witness. The state calls Detective James Miller. Miller took the stand, was sworn in, and sat. Santos asked him to walk the jury through the investigation. He explained the search warrant, the laptop, the burner phone with 37 messages, the packed suitcases, the tickets to Mexico, the fake pregnancy inserts. He held up photos, screenshots of Sarah's Google searches. How to cut brake lines? Undetectable harmful substances for elderly patients. Life insurance payout after accidental death. The jury leaned forward. The state calls Jessica Burke. Jessica looked small on the stand. Her hands shook as she was sworn in. Santos asked her to explain her involvement. Sarah Harrison contacted me in early March, Jessica said quietly. She offered me $5,000 to cut the brake lines on Emma Carter's car. She said to make it look like an accident. And did you do it? Yes. Jessica looked down. I needed the money. I have a record. I couldn't get work. She paid me $2,500 up front. Santos held up the burner phone. Are these your text messages with Sarah Harrison? Yes. And after Emma Carter passed, did Sarah contact you again? Jessica nodded. She said there was a new target, an old man, Thomas Harrison. Same method. Another $5,000. And did you do it? Yes. Her voice cracked. I cut his brake lines on the night of March 22nd. Reed stood for cross-examination. Ms. Burke, you have a criminal record, don't you? Yes. Fraud. Theft. Why should this jury believe you? Jessica looked at him. Because I have the text messages, the bank transactions, and I'm already serving 10 years for what I did. I have nothing to gain by lying. Reed sat down. The state calls Dr. Alan Price, forensic specialist. Dr. Price explained the brake systems on both Emma's car and mine. He showed photos of the cuts, clean, precise, professional. These were made with the same tool, he said. A hydraulic brake line cutter, the kind found in Sarah Harrison's vehicle. In your professional opinion, was this accidental? No. This was deliberate sabotage intended to cause loss of life. Santos called my name. I stood. My legs felt weak. I walked to the stand, was sworn in, and sat. Santos approached gently. Mr. Harrison, can you tell the jury about your relationship with Emma Carter and her son Liam? I took a breath. For 8 years, I knew Liam through a hole in a fence. His father, my son, built a 10-foot wall to keep them out. But I went to that fence 2-3 times a week. I carved wooden animals for Liam. I read to him. I taught him. I was there when no one else was. Did Emma ever tell you about the 2015 accident? Yes. She said David told her he'd hit someone while driving drunk, that he drove away and never looked back. And did you believe her? I didn't want to. But then I read her diary. I saw the evidence. And I knew it was true. Santos paused. Mr. Harrison, you've been harmed 3 separate times in the past 2 months. Can you describe what happened? I told them. The medication tampering, the collapse, the car crash. Do you believe your son was involved? I looked at David. He was crying now, his face buried in his hands. Yes, I said. I believe he was. Why? Because he was the only one who could have accessed my medication. And because when I confronted him, he called me a traitor. My voice broke. I love my son. But he chose to hurt innocent people. And I can't let him get away with it. Reed stood for cross-examination. Mr. Harrison, you didn't actually see your son tamper with your medication, did you? No. So you're guessing. I'm connecting the evidence. Isn't it true that you have a bias that you wanted custody of Liam, and this accusation served your interests? I looked at him. I wanted custody of Liam because his mother was taken from him by my son's wife. Reed sat down. Santos stood. Mr. Harrison, do you believe your son is guilty? I closed my eyes. Yes. And it's breaking my heart. Judge Coleman called a recess. I walked out of the courtroom, my legs shaking. Maria caught me in the hallway, pulled me into a hug. You did good, she whispered. Rachel squeezed my hand. Emma would be proud. Tomorrow Maria would testify, and the jury would hear about the man my son took from her 9 years ago. Maria Rodriguez wore black. A small photo of her husband pinned to her jacket, Michael smiling, younger, alive. She walked to the witness stand slowly, her hands steady. She was sworn in. She sat, and then she spoke. 9 years ago. Maria began, her voice quiet but clear. My husband was taken from me by a drunk driver who didn't have the courage to stop. Michael was 42 years old, an electrical engineer, a father of 3. He was walking home from work 6 blocks and he never made it. She looked at the jury. The driver left him on the road like he didn't matter, like his life was nothing. Her voice broke just a little. Our oldest son had to drop out of college to help me pay the bills. He was 19. He was supposed to be an architect. Now he works 60-hour weeks in a warehouse. She wiped her eyes. Our daughter fell into a depression. She tried to hurt herself. Twice. She's better now, but she's still broken. She's 21 and she's already lived a lifetime of pain. And our youngest, he's 17 now. He never got to meet his father. He doesn't remember him. All he has are stories and photographs. Maria turned and looked directly at David. You had 9 years to turn yourself in. 9 years to tell the truth. 9 years to give my family closure. Instead, you hid. You married. You built a life. And when a woman, a single mother, moved in next door and threatened to expose you, you terrorized her. Her voice hardened. You took my husband. You took my children's father. And you never said you were sorry. Not once. She looked back at the jury. He deserves to rot. The courtroom was silent. Judge Coleman asked Reed if he wanted to cross-examine. Reed stood, looked at Maria, then sat back down. No questions, Your Honor. Santos called 3 more witnesses. Emma's landlord testified that she was a good mother, always paid rent on time, quiet, respectful. A neighbor testified about the lawsuits, the fence, the way Sarah would scream at Emma in the driveway. Liam's second-grade teacher took the stand. Liam was a sweet boy, she said. But he was anxious. He worried about his mother constantly. He used to draw pictures in class, always the same thing, a woman with yellow hair, an angry face. He called her the angry lady. Then it was Liam's turn. Judge Coleman had approved a special arrangement. Liam would testify from a separate room via video link. Dr. Bennett sat beside him, her hand on his shoulder. I watched the screen as Liam appeared, small, scared, clutching that stuffed rabbit. Santos's voice came through gently. Hi, Liam. Can you tell the jury your name? Liam Carter. How old are you? 8. Liam, do you remember the night before your mama's accident? He nodded. Yes. Can you tell us what you saw? Liam looked down at the rabbit. I saw a lady by Mama's car. What was she doing? She was bending down, near the wheel. Santos held up a photograph. Liam, can you look at this picture? Do you recognize this person? Liam looked. Then he pointed. That's her. The angry lady. Are you sure? Yes. How do you know? Because Mama showed me her picture once. She said, stay away from this person. I remember her yellow hair. Reed stood for cross-examination. Liam, it was nighttime, wasn't it? Yes. And it was dark. Yes. So how can you be sure it was this woman? Liam looked at him. Because Mama told me to remember her. And I did. Reed sat down. No further questions. The next day, Reed made a decision that surprised everyone. He put David on the stand. David shuffled to the witness box in his orange jumpsuit, hands trembling. He was sworn in. He sat. Reed stood in front of him. David, can you tell the jury what happened in 2015? David's voice shook. I made a terrible mistake. I was 28. I'd been drinking with friends. I got in my car. I shouldn't have. And on the way home, I hit someone. He started to cry. I saw him. I saw him fall. And I panicked. I was scared. I thought I'd lose everything. So I drove away. Did you know the person had passed? No, not until the next day. I saw it in the news. Why didn't you turn yourself in? Because I was a coward. His voice cracked. I was scared, and I buried it. I paid cash to fix my car. I tried to forget. Reed paused. Did you have anything to do with Emma Carter's death? No. And did you try to harm your father? No. David looked at me, tears streaming down his face. Dad, I swear. I didn't know what Sarah was doing. I didn't know she was planning any of it. I'm not innocent. I'm guilty of what I did in 2015, but I didn't try to hurt anyone else. I'm not a killer. I'm just a coward. And I'm so sorry. Santos stood for cross-examination. She walked slowly toward David, her expression cold. Hannah, Mr. Harrison, you claim you didn't know what your wife was doing. I didn't. Chup, but you lived with her. You shared a home. You shared a life. Yes. You saw her searching the internet for how to cut brake lines. I didn't see that. Santos held up the laptop report. These searches were made on a shared computer, in your home. David looked down. You saw her withdraw $15,000 in cash 2 days after Emma Carter passed. Well, I thought she said it was for an emergency. You knew Emma was threatening to expose what you did in 2015. David was silent. You knew your father had evidence. You knew Sarah was capable of violence. And you did nothing. I didn't know. You didn't want to know, Santos said, her voice sharp. Because as long as you pretended you didn't see it, you could tell yourself you weren't responsible. But you were there. You benefited. You stood by while your wife ended someone's life. And then you stood by while she tried to end your own father's. She leaned closer. You're not a coward, Mr. Harrison. You're an accomplice. David said nothing. He just sat there, tears running down his face, hands shaking. Santos walked back to her table. No further questions. Lisa Morgan stood. Your Honor, the defense rests. Sarah Harrison will not be testifying. It was a smart move. Sarah's cold demeanor would have destroyed her in front of the jury. Judge Coleman nodded. Both sides have concluded witness testimony. Closing arguments will be heard tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Court is adjourned. I walked out of the courtroom in a daze. Maria caught up with me in the hallway. You okay? I nodded, but I wasn't sure. He looked at you, she said quietly. Did you see? I saw. Did you believe him? I thought about David's tears, his trembling hands, his voice breaking when he said he was sorry. I don't know, I said. But it doesn't matter. He still let it happen. He still did nothing. Rachel appeared holding 2 cups of coffee. She handed me one. Tomorrow's the last day, she said. I nodded. Tomorrow the lawyers would make their final arguments, and then the jury would decide. The 5th day, the courtroom was packed again. Every seat filled. Maria in the front row. Rachel beside her. Me between them, hands folded, waiting. Judge Coleman entered. We stood. She nodded and we sat. We will now hear closing arguments, she said. The prosecution may proceed. Santos stood. She walked to the center of the room, her hands clasped in front of her. She looked at the jury, 12 faces tired from 4 days of testimony, but attentive. Ladies and gentlemen, Santos began. You've heard the evidence. Text messages, Google searches, break lines cut with precision. A confession from an accomplice who had nothing to gain by lying. You've heard from Maria Rodriguez, a widow who waited 9 years for the truth. You've heard from an 8-year-old boy who pointed at the woman he saw near his mother's car the night before she was gone. And you've heard from Thomas Harrison, a father who had the courage to turn in his own son. She paused, letting the weight of it settle. David Harrison took Michael Rodriguez's life in 2015. He was drunk. He hit a man and drove away. He paid cash to fix his car and buried the truth. For 9 years, he let Maria and her children suffer without answers, without justice. Santos turned toward the defense table. When Emma Carter, the mother of his child, moved next door and threatened to expose him, he didn't confess. He didn't apologize. Instead, he and his wife decided to make her disappear. She walked closer to the jury. Sarah Harrison hired someone to cut Emma's brake lines. She searched online for ways to harm elderly people. She withdrew $15,000 in cash. She packed suitcases and bought tickets to Mexico. And when Thomas Harrison discovered the truth, she tried to end his life too. 3 times. Santos's voice hardened. These 2 people thought they could get away with taking lives. They thought they were above the law. But Emma Carter left a trail of truth. She left a letter, a diary, evidence. And now it's in your hands. She looked each juror in the eye. Find them guilty. For Michael, for Emma, for Liam, for every person whose life they shattered. She sat down. Reed stood. He looked tired, defeated. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, my client is guilty of vehicular manslaughter in 2015. He admits it. He's ashamed of it. But he is not a killer. There is no evidence, none, that he touched Emma Carter's car. No evidence that he gave any order to harm her. He's a coward. A man who made a terrible mistake and spent 9 years running from it. But he is not a cold-blooded killer. Reed gestured toward the evidence table. Larry, the prosecution wants you to convict him of conspiracy, of attempted harm. I ask you to consider the facts. My client didn't know what his wife was planning. He didn't see the searches. He didn't see the cash withdrawal. He was blind to it because he didn't want to see it. He sat down. Lisa Morgan stood. The case against Sarah Harrison is built on two things, she said. Google searches and the testimony of a convicted criminal. That's it. No fingerprints on Emma Carter's car. No DNA. No physical evidence linking my client to anything. She walked toward the jury. Millions of people search dark topics online out of curiosity. It doesn't make them guilty of anything. And Jessica Burke. She's a woman with a criminal record who's already serving 10 years. She has every reason to lie, to trade testimony for a reduced sentence. Morgan's voice softened. There is reasonable doubt here, and where there is doubt, you must acquit. She sat down. Judge Coleman gave her instructions. Reasonable doubt does not mean absolute certainty, she said. It means doubt based on reason and common sense. You must consider all the evidence. If you believe the prosecution has proven guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, you must convict. If you have doubt, you must acquit. She listed the charges. For David, vehicular manslaughter, conspiracy, 2 counts of attempted harm. For Sarah, first-degree intentional harm, conspiracy, 2 counts of attempted harm. The jury will now deliberate, Judge Coleman said. They filed out, and we waited. 2 hours later, the bailiff called us back. I sat in the same seat. Maria beside me, Rachel on my other side. My heart was pounding so hard I thought everyone could hear it. Judge Coleman entered. Has the jury reached a verdict? The foreman stood, a man in his 60s, graying hair, steady hands. Did we have your honor? Please read the verdict. The foreman looked down at the paper in his hands. In the matter of the state versus David Harrison. On the count of vehicular manslaughter, we find the defendant guilty. David's shoulders slumped. On the count of conspiracy to commit harm, we find the defendant guilty. His attorney put a hand on his arm. On the count of attempted harm against Thomas Harrison, we find the defendant guilty. David collapsed forward, his face in his hands, sobbing. The foreman continued. In the matter of the state versus Sarah Harrison. On the count of first-degree intentional harm and the death of Emma Carter, we find the defendant guilty. Sarah didn't move, didn't blink, just stared straight ahead. On the count of conspiracy, we find the defendant guilty. On the count of attempted harm against Thomas Harrison, we find the defendant guilty. Still, she showed nothing. Judge Coleman thanked the jury. Sentencing will be scheduled in 2 weeks. Court is adjourned. Maria turned and buried her face in her son's shoulder, sobbing. Rachel grabbed my hand, squeezing tight. I just sat there, tears streaming down my face, unable to speak. It was over. 2 weeks later, we returned for sentencing. Judge Coleman asked if anyone wished to speak. Maria stood first. And I hope, she said, her voice shaking, that every single day you spend in prison, you think about the man you took from me, the father you took from my children. I hope you never forget. She sat down. Rachel stood next. My sister was brave and strong, she said. You tried to erase her, but she lives on in Liam. You failed. Then it was my turn. I stood, looked at David. You were my son, I said. My voice was steady, but my hands shook. I loved you. I was proud of you. And if you had come to me in 2015, if you had told me the truth, I would have stood by you. I would have helped you turn yourself in. I would have forgiven you. David looked up at me, tears pouring down his face. But you didn't, I said. You chose to lie. You chose to run. You chose to terrorize an innocent woman. And when your own father discovered the truth, you tried to end my life. My voice broke. I will never forgive you. I hope you find some kind of peace in prison, but I won't be there to see it. I sat down. Judge Coleman looked at David and Sarah. David Harrison. She said, you are sentenced to 50 years in prison. You will be eligible for parole after 35 years. David would be 73. Sarah Harrison. Judge Coleman continued, you are sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for the intentional harm of Emma Carter. Additionally, you are sentenced to 55 years for conspiracy and attempted harm. These sentences will run consecutively. Sarah would never leave prison. David turned in his seat, looking back at me. "My dad," he said, his voice breaking. "I'm sorry." I looked away. Sarah was led out in silence, her face blank, her hands cuffed. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. "Mr. Harrison, how do you feel?" I stopped, took a breath. "Justice has been served," I said. "Now I'm going home to my grandson." The cemetery was quiet, just the two of us and the white flowers. I knelt in front of Emma's grave, the grass damp under my knees. Liam stood beside me, holding a small wooden bird, the robin I'd carved the night before the trial. "Emma," I whispered, my voice thick. "It's over. They're in prison. Liam is safe, and I'm going to take care of him. I promise." Liam knelt beside me and placed the wooden bird at the base of the headstone. Then, in a small, shaky voice, he started to sing, "You are my sunshine, my only sunshine." His voice cracked. Tears streamed down his face. "You make me happy when skies are gray." I wrapped my arm around him, and we cried together, two people who'd lost someone we loved, holding on to each other because we had no one else. The first week was hard. Liam started therapy 3 times a week with Dr. Bennett. I enrolled him in 3rd grade at Hartford Elementary. He was nervous. He didn't know anyone, but I walked him to the classroom that first day, and I told him the same thing Emma used to tell him: "You're braver than you think." Rachel and Marcus flew in from San Francisco and stayed for 2 weeks. They helped me set up Liam's room properly, new bedding, a bigger desk, posters of planets and dinosaurs. Rachel cried every time she looked at Emma's photo on the wall. "She'd be so proud of you," she told me one night. "I hope so," I said. 3 months later, things started to feel lighter. Liam made 2 friends at school, Jake and Mia. They came over after school sometimes, and I'd make them sandwiches while they drew pictures at the kitchen table. I started a woodworking club at the community center. Just a few kids meeting once a week. Liam joined. We carved animals, picture frames, small boxes. Liam made a bird for Jake, a turtle for Mia, and a heart for his mother's grave. He also painted a picture of Emma. Her smile, her dark hair, the way she used to look at him, like he was the most important person in the world. We hung it in the living room next to the photo. 6 months after the trial, Maria invited me to a support group. It met every Thursday evening at a church hall downtown. Families who'd lost someone. People who were still searching for justice. People who'd found it and didn't know what to do with the emptiness that came after. I told my story about Emma, about David, about the trial, and people listened. Afterward, a man came up to me. His daughter had been gone for 3 years, hit and run, no leads. He shook my hand and said, "Thank you. You gave me hope." Maria and I started meeting for coffee once a week. We talked about our lives, our grief, our families. She told me about her kids, how her oldest son was thinking about going back to school, how her daughter was finally smiling again. "You did that," I said. "We did that," she corrected. "You and me. We didn't let them get away with it." 9 months after the trial, Rachel called. I was making dinner when the phone rang. Liam was at the table doing homework. "Unamis," Rachel said, her voice shaking. "I'm pregnant." I froze. "What?" "I'm pregnant. We just found out. And we've been talking. Marcus and I. We want to move to Connecticut. To be close to Liam. To be close to you." My throat tightened. "Emma would be so happy." Rachel's voice broke. "We're going to name her Emma Rose." I had to sit down. Her, Rachel said, laughing through tears. "A little girl, due in December." Liam looked up from his homework. "What's wrong, Grandpa?" I put the phone on speaker. "Rachel, tell him." Rachel said, "You're going to have a cousin." Liam's eyes went wide. He jumped out of his chair, grinning. "Really?" "Really," Rachel said. "And we're going to live near you. So you can teach her how to carve wood." Liam looked at me, his face lit up in a way I hadn't seen in a year. I'm going to have a cousin. You are, I said, pulling him into a hug. 12 months after the trial, we had a normal morning. I made pancakes. Liam ate 4 of them, drowning them in syrup. He told me about his math test he'd gotten a 95. I'm proud of you, buddy, I said. He looked down at his plate. Do you think Mama would be proud? I reached across the table and squeezed his hand. I know she would. That evening, Rachel and Marcus came over for dinner. Rachel was 5 months along now, glowing, her hand resting on her belly. Maria came too, bringing her youngest son, a quiet 17-year-old, who sat next to Liam and talked about video games. We ate spaghetti. We laughed. We told stories. And for the first time in a year, I felt peace. After everyone left, I was washing dishes when I saw the envelope on the counter. A letter. From the Hartford Correctional Facility. From David. It was the 12th one he'd sent. I hadn't opened any of them. I stared at it for a long time. Liam came into the kitchen holding his backpack. Is that from him? I nodded. Are you going to read it? I didn't know what to say. I don't know. Liam looked at the envelope, then at me. Maybe not today. I smiled. Yeah, maybe not today. I put the letter in the drawer with the others. Later that night, Liam and I sat on the porch. The fence was gone. I'd torn it down 6 months ago with Maria's oldest son helping me. The yard was open now. Green. Full of light. Liam leaned against me, his head on my shoulder. Grandpa. Yeah, buddy. Do you think we're going to be okay? I looked out at the yard. At the space where the fence used to be. At the place where I'd knelt for 8 years, talking to a little boy through a hole in the wood. Yeah, I said. I think we are. I thought about Emma. About the letter she'd left me. About the wooden animals. About the way she'd fought for her son even when she knew it might end her. We made it, Emma, I thought. We're going to be okay. Liam closed his eyes, and I held him close, listening to the crickets and the distant hum of the neighborhood settling into night. For the first time in a year, I wasn't afraid. I was home. It was June 2025, exactly 14 months since the trial had ended. I sat on the front porch in the late afternoon sun, my cane resting against the armrest of my chair. The garden stretched out before me, green and alive, filled with the flowers Rachel had helped us plant back in the spring. Where the old fence had once stood separating my yard from Emma's, there was now a handcrafted wooden bench. I had carved it myself over the course of 3 months, working late into the evenings after Liam went to bed. Engraved along the backrest were the words, "Where strangers became family." I ran my fingers over the letters, smoothing the grain. Emma would have liked it. The screen door banged open, and Liam came running out, his backpack bouncing against his shoulders. His face was flushed with excitement, his hair sticking up in all directions. Grandpa, look." He thrust a blue ribbon and a certificate into my hands. I won first place in the Young Artist competition. I studied the certificate carefully. Liam Carter, first place wood carving division, Hartford Elementary School, grade 3. My chest tightened with pride. This is incredible, buddy. Your mom would be so proud of you. Liam grinned, his eyes, Emma's eyes, sparkling in the sunlight. Do you really think so? I know so. The school ceremony. The award ceremony was held in the school gymnasium the following evening. The bleachers were packed with parents, teachers, and students. I sat in the front row alongside Rachel, who was visibly pregnant, at 7 months, her belly round and full beneath a soft blue dress, and her husband, Marcus. Maria Rodriguez sat beside us, her youngest son fidgeting in the seat next to her. When Liam's name was called, the entire crowd erupted in applause. He walked onto the stage carrying his winning piece, a meticulously carved wooden robin wings, outstretched, perched on a small branch. The detail was astonishing. Every feather, every curve of the beak, every delicate claw had been carved with precision and care. The principal handed him the microphone. Liam looked out at the audience, his small hands gripping the stand tightly. So I learned wood carving from my grandpa. He said, his voice steady but soft. He taught me that things that are broken can still be made beautiful again. The applause was deafening. I felt Rachel squeeze my hand. Maria leaned over and whispered, "Emma is watching." "I know she is." I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. After the ceremony, parents and children gathered in the hallway for refreshments. Liam was surrounded by classmates admiring his wooden robin. His teacher, Mrs. Patterson, approached me with a warm smile. "Mr. Harrison, Liam is a remarkable young man," she said. "He's kind, thoughtful, and incredibly talented. You should be very proud." I am," I said quietly, "every single day." Visiting Emma's grave. The next afternoon, Liam and I drove to the cemetery. We brought the blue ribbon and a bouquet of white daisies, Emma's favorite. Liam knelt beside the headstone and placed the ribbon gently against the marble. "Mom, I won," he said quietly. "Grandpa says you're watching me. I hope you saw it." I stood a few steps back, giving him space. The wind rustled through the trees, and for a moment I could have sworn I heard Emma's laughter, light and warm, the way it used to sound, through the gap in the fence. "She's still here," I said softly. "Every single day." Liam looked up at me, his eyes wet with tears. "Do you think she's proud of me?" "I think she's the proudest mom in the world." He smiled through his tears and placed his small hand on the stone. "I love you, Mom." We sat there together for a long time, watching the sunlight filter through the branches overhead. Birds sang in the distance. The world felt quiet and peaceful. The dinner celebration. That evening, Rachel hosted a small dinner party at our house. She had insisted on cooking, despite being 7 months pregnant and constantly tired, and the dining room was filled with the smell of roasted chicken, garlic mashed potatoes, and fresh-baked rolls. Maria and her youngest son joined us along with Marcus and Rachel. Liam sat at the head of the table, his blue ribbon pinned proudly to his shirt. During dessert apple pie, which Liam had helped me bake, Rachel stood and cleared her throat. "I have some news," she said, smiling. She placed a hand on her rounded belly. "Marcus and I found a house. It's only 10 minutes from here. We'll be moving in next month." Liam's face lit up. "Really, you're staying?" "We're staying," Rachel confirmed. "Emma was my sister, and you're my nephew. I'm not going anywhere." Maria raised her glass. "To family, the ones we're born into and the ones we choose." We all clinked glasses, Liam with his apple juice, and for the first time in years, the room felt full. Not just with people, but with love. Later, as the dishes were being cleared, Rachel pulled me aside in the kitchen. "I have more good news," she said quietly. "The charity fund, the one we set up with the seized assets from David and Sarah, it's been helping families. In the last 18 months, we've assisted 89 families affected by drunk driving and domestic violence. 89, Thomas." I stared at her, stunned. "Emma would have loved that." "She would have," Rachel agreed, her eyes glistening. "Her legacy is living on, not in the pain, but in the hope." Another letter. After everyone had left and Liam was getting ready for bed, I found another envelope on the front porch. The return address was familiar Hartford Correctional Facility. Letter number 15. I sat down on the porch steps and opened it slowly. I heard Liam won an award for wood carving. I'm proud of him, even though I have no right to be. Please tell him I'm sorry. Tell him I wish I could have been the father he deserved. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I hope one day he'll know that I'm trying. David. I folded the letter and slipped it into my pocket. The screen door creaked open behind me, and Liam stepped out in his pajamas. "Who was that letter from, Grandpa?" I looked at him for a long moment. "Your father. He says he's proud of you." Liam was quiet. He sat down beside me on the steps, his bare feet dangling over the edge. "Do you think one day I'll write back to him?" "Maybe," I said carefully. "When you're ready." Liam nodded slowly. "Not today, though." "Not today," I agreed. Take your time, buddy. He leaned his head against my shoulder. I love you, Grandpa. I love you too, son. The garden bench. As the sun set over the garden where the fence used to stand, Liam and I sat together on the wooden bench. The words carved into the backrest glowed faintly in the evening light, and where strangers became family, Liam kicked his legs back and forth. Grandpa, are we going to be okay? I wrapped my arm around his shoulders. We already are, buddy. He smiled up at me. I love you, Grandpa. I love you too, Liam. More than you'll ever know. As darkness fell and the stars began to appear, I realized something profound. Justice wasn't just found in courtrooms or verdicts. It lived here in the laughter of a child, in a family rebuilt from broken pieces, and in a love that no darkness could extinguish. Emma's legacy lived on. Not in the past, but in every day that Liam chose hope over hatred, courage over fear. And that, I thought, was the truest justice of all. The phone call came on a Tuesday morning in September, 3 months after Liam's award ceremony. I was in the garage teaching Liam how to sand the edges of a wooden picture frame when my cell phone buzzed against the workbench. The caller ID read, Hartford Correctional Medical Unit. I hesitated before answering. Hello. Mr. Harrison. A woman's voice, professional and clipped. This is Dr. Patricia Lawson from the prison hospital. I'm calling regarding your son, David Harrison. My grip tightened on the phone. What happened? He was assaulted by another inmate yesterday evening. He sustained severe head trauma, a subdural hematoma. We need to perform emergency surgery, but we require consent from his next of kin. I closed my eyes. Why me? You're the only immediate family member listed in his file. His wife is incarcerated and legally cannot provide consent. We need you to come in and sign the authorization forms as soon as possible. I looked over at Liam, who was watching me with wide, curious eyes. I'll be there in an hour. The prison hospital. The correctional medical facility was a cold, sterile building attached to the main prison by a reinforced corridor. A guard escorted me through 3 security checkpoints before leading me to a small consultation room where Dr. Lawson waited with a clipboard. Hi, Mr. Harrison, she said, extending her hand. Thank you for coming so quickly. Your son is in critical condition. Without surgery, he may not survive the night. What are his chances if you operate? 70% survival rate. But there's a significant risk of permanent neurological damage, memory loss, motor impairment, cognitive decline. I nodded slowly. Can I see him first? She hesitated, then gestured to the guard. 5 minutes. David lay in a hospital bed behind a reinforced glass partition, his face swollen and covered in bandages. His left eye was nearly shut, and thick white gauze wrapped around his skull. An IV drip fed into his arm, and a heart monitor beeped steadily beside him. When the guard opened the door, David's one good eye focused on me. His lips trembled. Dad. His voice was barely a whisper. I'm sorry. I don't want to die. I stood at the foot of the bed, my arms crossed. I said nothing. Please. Tears slid down his bruised cheeks. Give me a chance. Why should I save you? The words came out harsher than I intended, but I didn't regret them. He swallowed painfully. Maybe. If I live, I can spend the rest of my life trying to make things right. I stared at him for a long moment. This man, my son, had destroyed so many lives. Michael Rodriguez, Emma Carter. He had tried to destroy mine, and yet standing there in that prison hospital room, all I could think about was Liam's question from a few weeks ago. Grandpa, do people ever really change? I turned toward the door. I'll sign the papers, but not for you. I'm doing this for Liam. He deserves to know that his father is still alive even if he never sees you again. But I will never forgive you. David's voice cracked. Thank you. I didn't look back. The surgery. Dr. Lawson met me in the hallway with the consent forms. I signed them without reading the fine print. The surgery took 4 hours. David survived, but the doctors said he had sustained mild neurological damage, his short-term memory was impaired, and he would need months of rehabilitation. I left the hospital that evening and never visited again. The letters. Over the following weeks, I thought about the 12 letters David had sent over the past year. I had left the first 11 unopened, stacking them in a drawer in my office. I didn't want to read them. I didn't want to hear his excuses or his apologies. But one evening in late September, Liam came into my office while I was organizing some old files. He spotted the stack of envelopes on my desk. "What are those, Grandpa?" "Letters," I said simply. "From your father." Liam's face grew serious. He looked down at his hands. Do you think people can really change?" I set down the file I was holding and looked at him. "I don't know, buddy. I really don't know." That night, after Liam had gone to bed, I opened the 12th letter. Letter number 12. "Dad, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve forgiveness. But I need you to know something. Every single day I think about the man I killed. I think about Emma. I think about you, and I think about my son. I can't undo what I did. I can't bring Michael Rodriguez back. I can't bring Emma back. I can't take back the fear and the pain I caused you. But I'm trying to become better. I've started therapy here, cognitive behavioral therapy. I volunteer in the prison library. I help other inmates learn to read. It's not enough. It will never be enough. But it's all I can do. Please tell my son that I'm sorry. Tell him that I wish I had been brave enough to be his father. Tell him that he deserves better than me, and that you are the father figure I never was. I don't ask for your forgiveness. I only ask that you tell him the truth. David." I sat at my desk and wept. Not for David, not for the son I had lost, but for the man he might have become if he had made different choices. When I looked up, Liam was standing in the doorway in his pajamas. "Grandpa, are you okay?" I wiped my eyes quickly. "Yeah, buddy, I'm okay. Just thinking about your dad." Liam walked over and stood beside my chair. "Do you think he's sorry?" "I think he is. But being sorry doesn't fix what's broken." Liam nodded slowly. "Can I read his letter someday?" "When you're ready." Liam's reply. A few weeks later, Liam came to me with a folded piece of notebook paper. "I wrote something. Can you send it to him?" I unfolded the paper and read. "I don't call you Dad. Grandpa says you did bad things and that you're sorry. I don't know if I forgive you, but I don't hate you either. My mom taught me not to hate people. I'm doing good with Grandpa. We carve wood together and he makes me pancakes. Maybe one day I'll visit you. But not now. Liam." I sent the letter along with one of my own. "Your son has written to you. Read it carefully. He is stronger and braver than you ever were. Don't disappoint him again. Thomas Harrison." Letting go. That evening, Liam and I stood together in front of the fireplace. I held the stack of 11 unopened letters in my hands. "Are you sure about this?" I asked him. He nodded. "The past is over, Grandpa. We move forward now." I tossed the letters into the flames one by one. We watched them curl and blacken, the ink bleeding into ash. Liam took my hand. "We're going to be okay, right?" I squeezed his hand. "Yes, buddy. We're going to be better than okay." And for the first time in 2 years, I believed it. Looking back, I see my greatest mistake wasn't trusting my son. It was staying silent when I knew something was wrong. I ignored Emma's fear. I dismissed the evidence before my eyes. I chose comfort over courage. Don't be like me. If you see someone suffering, speak up. If something feels wrong, investigate. If a child needs protection, act even when it costs you everything. This is one of those grandpa stories that changed everything. Like all true family story moments, it taught me that grandpa stories aren't just about the past. They're about choosing right over wrong. My family story nearly ended in tragedy, because I stayed silent too long. Now I share these grandpa stories so others won't make my mistake. God gave me a second chance with Liam. This family story became my redemption. Don't wait. Don't ignore. Don't stay silent. The cost is too high. Thank you for walking with me to the end of this journey. Please leave a comment, sharing your thoughts. What would you do if you found yourself in Thomas's impossible situation? I'd truly love to hear your perspective. If this story resonated with you emotionally, please consider subscribing to the channel so you don't miss future videos. A gentle reminder, while inspired by real social issues and true events, certain elements have been dramatized for storytelling purposes. If this content doesn't align with your preferences, feel free to explore other videos that may be a better fit.